If the Rangers are looking to pinch pennies this winter, I've got 5 different trade candidates they could ship off to cut some cash. Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Texas Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into 5 different players the Rangers could trade to save some cash this winter, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, I want to get things started just on a note, a very important note, I feel like, to start this episode off. This is not me being pro Rangers being cheap. This is not me being in favor of this. This is just me exploring some opportunities, some possibilities, hopefully not eventualities or actualities, things that actually come to pass, hoping that this is just an episode that we can look back on after the Rangers spend a butt ton of cash this winter and say, wow, what a silly time that was to think, wow, let's see how we can cut costs and cut corners to try and contend for a World Series in 2025. But alas, I think that might be something we need to look into. So I've got 5 different players on the Rangers they could look at trading now to kind of save just a little bit of cash if they are looking to do so this winter. Not that I think that this will be the only moves they make, but just some hypotheticals to look at. Now, the number one player, the most talked about player when people are looking at the Rangers payroll for next year of guys who they could trade to cut some costs is Nathaniel Lowe. And I think this would be a big mistake, but we're looking into possibilities. Now, Nathaniel Lowe is projected to make around $10.7 million next year in arbitration, his penultimate year in arbitration. He will have one more arbitration season with the Rangers in 2026 before becoming a free agent that winter. But you look at $10.7 million, you think, oh boy, that's a lot for a first baseman. That's a lot for a guy who doesn't hit 30 home runs or doesn't do whatever you want Nathaniel Lowe to do. And yeah, $10.7 million is a decent chunk of change. But right now, before the Rangers sign any free agents, he is projected to make the 6th most money on the Rangers, behind Jacob deGrom, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Tyler Mahle, Jon Gray. Then there's Nathaniel Lowe at $10.7 million. You may be thinking, wow, that's kind of a lot for a first baseman. I don't know if he's really that good of a first baseman. Well, to speak to the a lot for a first baseman, let's look at the guys who are making more money than him at first base, or projected to next season. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., projected to make $28 million next year. Maybe a little bit better than Nathaniel Lowe. Number 1 on this list, Freddie Freeman, former MVP, World Series MVP, $27 million next year. Better than Nathaniel Lowe. A lot more money than Nathaniel Lowe. Then you have Chris Bryant, Paul Goldschmidt, Bryce Harper, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, which that's just Pete Alonso's listed number from last year at $20.5 million. And then you have Wilson Contreras, who is a catcher that's also now a first baseman, signed a big deal as a catcher, getting paid like a catcher. And then you see more guys on this list that are still ahead of Nathaniel Lowe. Josh Bell, making $16.5 million projected for this next year. Josh Naylor, Jake Cronenworth, Christian Walker as well, who's probably going to make a lot more than Nathaniel Lowe because he is a free agent. That puts Nathaniel Lowe as the 13th highest paid first baseman in baseball next year. That is just with some projections, not even what people are actually getting in free agency. This is just projections we're talking about here. Now, Paul Goldschmidt might make a little bit less than Nathaniel Lowe this year, depending on who's feeling frisky of giving an older guy a big old contract. But basically at the middle of the road, first baseman, 13th. That's not one of the best first basemen in baseball. And Lowe, I think, has been producing like one of the better first basemen in all of baseball. And I got the numbers to back it up. Look at FanGraphs over the last 4 seasons, which includes all of his seasons as an everyday starting first baseman for your Texas Rangers. He ranks 9th in FanGraphs WAR. The guys ahead of him that are getting paid less than him on that list are, well, there's just one, Yandy Diaz. That's it. It's the only guy who is making less than him, producing more than him. That's because he signed a well below market extension with the Rays, because that's just what the Rays do. So bang for your buck, Nathaniel Lowe has been about as good as they come. 9th highest FanGraphs WAR over the last 4 seasons. You want to go back and look at last year, just saying, okay, well, let's go for some full recency bias. Nathaniel Lowe was the 6th best first baseman in baseball last year, according to FanGraphs WAR. I count him as 6 as opposed to 7 because Salvador Perez was listed as a first baseman, even though he's playing the vast majority of his games at catcher. So Nathaniel Lowe still got it. He's still a very important bat in this lineup. He still walks at an elite rate. His defense is elite. I think both FanGraphs and Baseball Reference have his defense as a net negative, even though his outs above average is in the 91st percentile of baseball. Don't really know exactly how they're calculating those defensive metrics, but all of that to say, look at the batting run value on Baseball Savant, and he's the top 16% of baseball. The overall catch-all offensive impact, Nathaniel Lowe's a top 16% of players in baseball. And you look at defensive value, top 20% of baseball. You want a guy who could win the Silver Slugger and a Gold Glove in the same year, which is his goal for 2025. That's this guy. I know he's not impacting the baseball at Pete Alonso rate, but the overall offensive value that those two are providing is kind of similar. I mean, Pete Alonso's on base is nowhere near Nathaniel Lowe's, and well, he has twice as many home runs over the last 3 seasons as our boy Nathaniel Lowe does. But still, Nathaniel Lowe is providing an overall massive offensive impact. The way that he battles, the way that he works those long at bats, the way that he sees so many pitches, that does so many different things for this lineup. In a lineup where last year this team was a little bit too aggressive early on, it counts, not working long at bats, not tiring out these pitchers, not going to battle and just making it an absolute nightmare on opposing pitchers to go face them 1 through 9. Lowe is one of those guys in the middle of this lineup where he's providing that protection from Seager. He is battling those foul balls, those million pitch at bats. They matter. They really do matter in the long term. And I think it's very, very hard. I know it's very hard to quantify that in a WOBA or a ISO, whatever, X WOBAcon flip, whatever kind of advanced stat to catch those kinds of offensive impacts. And I think Lowe is going to have a very, very good season next year. I think that I feel very confident that he is going to be the maybe second or third best bat in the Rangers lineup next year. I'm thinking probably behind Corey Seager and maybe behind Wyatt Langford, depending on the season that he has. But it's easy to forget how much of an offensive impact Lowe had in that Silver Slugger season, that just absolutely insane run of 2.5 months after the All-Star break, where he was hitting in the 350s and just slugging the absolute crap out of the baseball and just absolutely putting on a freaking laser show. And offensively, he had a little bit of a down year this year, but still providing that on base, providing those long at bats, even in 2023, where you thought, oh, what a terrible offensive season for him. He would admit this, oh, what a terrible offensive season. His OPS plus was 114, still 14% better than the league average batter. He had nearly 40 doubles that season, not quite 20 home runs, which is what he was looking for, but the on base was still there at 360, still slugging over 400. I mean, this guy just puts together quality season after quality season. He's averaged 2.7 Baseball Reference WAR every season as a Texas Ranger. 4 seasons, averaging 2.7 WAR at a first baseman. Do you know how difficult that is to do? But he does it year in, year out. And it's easy to look at the sticker shock of saying, $10.7 million for a first baseman, any first baseman, it could surely get that in the aggregate. You can't. There's no free agent the Rangers are going to go sign that's going to put up those kind of numbers. There's nobody in this system internally that is going to come up and immediately put up those numbers. It's just not there. This is a very, very difficult kind of a player to find, and the Rangers have one in Nathaniel Lowe. And I think that we oftentimes, because Nathaniel Lowe is so down on himself in what he does, because, oh, I'm a first baseman, I don't hit the ball over the fence. There's still a lot of other ways for first basemen to impact winning baseball. And Nathaniel Lowe most definitely is that. But the rest of these guys on this list is trade candidates. They might be a little bit more likely to go, a little bit less worth what they might make in arbitration. We're going to look at the rest of these 5 guys right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, the next guy on this list is a much maligned, much whined about, much angry tweeted about player, maybe the most so on the Rangers. That is Leody Taveras, the Rangers. Well, everyday shortstop. What am I talking about? Center fielder for the last few seasons, including the World Series champion 2023 Texas Rangers. But this year, oh boy, not a great season for young Mr. Taveras. A .5 baseball reference WAR season in 151 games, projected to make $5 million, $5.2 million in arbitration. This is year 2 of arbitration for the guy will be 26 years old, and his position as an everyday center fielder is in question at this point. I mean, the defense is still there. It is a little mind-numbing, a little inconsistent, but the spectacular plays outweigh the occasional baffling guffaw in the outfield. He's still got it out there. He still has one of the stronger arms in baseball at 91st percentile of arm strength. I mean, the outs above average. He's in the top 12% of baseball. He's still going out there and getting it in center field, which is a very, very valuable thing. But the offense this year was just terrible. It's terrible. Base running value is much better, much more aggressive on the base pass, led the Rangers with 23 steals, the most he's ever had in his career by far. Did have 12 home runs. That's nice, but there weren't a whole lot of other extra base hits to go along with it. I mean, last year he had 14 home runs, 2023, that is, and 31 doubles. This year, 2 fewer home runs and 14 fewer doubles. Still had 3 triples, so that was nice. But overall, offensively, Leody was just not bringing in a way the Rangers needed him to. Even as their number 9 hitter, he still just was not getting it done. And to me, what's pretty frustrating about Leody is that even though he is a center fielder, or he's a switch hitter, he's not hitting lefties well at all. A 514 OPS against lefties this year, and especially since the Rangers have Evan Carter, who is, has not proved himself to be able to hit against lefties. If Leody could just hit lefties well, even just lefties well, that would be a huge, huge plus for him. But I mean, go back his entire career as a major leaguer, he's 612 OPS against left-handed pitching, 682 against righties. So definitely a much, much better hitter hitting against right-handed pitching, which is frustrating. And this would definitely be selling low on Leody Taveras if the Rangers traded him at this point. This was a career worst year. I mean, he showed what he can do as a pretty good, at least around above middle of the pack center fielder in 2023. Just overall value, a guy who you can put out there every single day in center field at a premium defensive position, can give you premium defense. Not a whole lot offensively, but does show flashes. I mean, the whole first half of 2023, it looked like an all-star. I mean, that was the kind of offense that he was putting up. It's streaky. It is so incredibly streaky, but this is still a guy with that kind of potential, still many, many years under contract, or I guess, 2-3 years under contract? I think 2 more seasons after this, including this season. That's valuable. That's a guy still in his prime, still has shown some potential that there is something left untapped, but you would definitely be selling low. The Rangers would definitely be selling low if they traded Leody Taveras right now, coming off of this really just poor season from him, and I guarantee you he would be the first one to admit it. But if the Rangers are looking to save $5 million, $5.2 million specifically, this is technically a way. And I think that there's a very good chance that Wyatt Langford is playing every day in center field, or maybe that's Evan Carter. I don't think that's going to be anybody outside of those two if it's not Leody Taveras, and they do want to hold on to Leody. If Leody is your fourth outfielder that you come in and bring him in there for defense at the end of the game, or a pinch runner or whatever, just a guy to spell your everyday outfielders, and the Rangers want to go get a DH and solve their outfield defense that way. He's a solid player to have, and $5 million isn't a bad price, but it's not good, and it's not what the Rangers were necessarily looking for, especially if you decide that Wyatt Langford is your everyday center fielder. That puts Leody in a precarious place, in a place where the Rangers might just look to move on from him. The next guy on this list is the guy who I talked about trading on Friday. That would not necessarily be the trade that I pitched. Jon Gray is the guy I'm talking about, making $13 million next year, the fifth highest paid player on the Rangers roster for 2025 before they have signed any free agents, behind the likes of Mahle. And this was just not a good season for Jon Gray. It was not consistent. He was not durable. He was just meh, very meh. And honestly, with how expensive free agent starting pitchers are and how bad the Rangers have a history of being with developing starting pitchers, a trend that's looking to change with Kumar Rocker, with Cody Bradford, with Jack Leiter. But again, two of those three are still very unproven. Bradford is still mostly unproven, had a really, really good season last year, but again, wasn't even healthy for the entirety of the season. So we didn't have one full season of a body of work of seeing Cody Bradford be a pretty good starting pitcher that is homegrown. And Gray at $13 million, he was not great last year, but that's not a horrible value. But still, if the Rangers are looking to cut cash, it's really about money allocation with all of these. If you're not spending it on these guys, where are you going to go get this value? Where are you going to go get this kind of valuable player at a less expensive cost? With Gray, I think that it makes the most sense to kind of trade him away as a distressed asset, in that Jon Gray for Jordan Montgomery 1-for-1 kind of a swap, a deal that says, okay, well, we aren't really sure exactly what we're getting with Gray. And frankly, the main thing that made me put Jon Gray on this list is just his durability. The Rangers need durability next year. They really do. I mean, four of the guys that are going into the rotation to start next season, you have some big questions about their health. You have DeGrom, you have Rocker, you have Mahle, you have Gray. Heck, you even have Bradford, who I hope is going to be healthy next year. I hope that this back thing was just an isolated incident, but you could look at basically everybody in this starting rotation that's projected to open the season with, if the Rangers sign absolutely nobody in free agency, which I don't think is going to be the case, but is it possible theoretically. Gray has given you 102 innings last year, 157 in 2023, and 127 in 2022. The Rangers need 150 innings out of Gray. They just flat out do, and they need it to be as a starter, and they need it to be, about above, or at least at league average. They need 150 innings from him. Pretty much minimum, it feels like, with the questions that there are around Mahle, around DeGrom, around how much Rocker is going to be allowed to pitch, and heck, even around Cody Bradford, and also around the guys who are below him on that depth chart in, Jack Leiter. But still, this is a guy who is not a bad contract, but if you're just straight up looking to move off some of this, to free up some cash, to go make some big splashy signing, or I don't know, just some mediocre signing, $13 million for an okay starting pitcher who you have some questions about. It's not great, but it's not horrible, but it's definitely not great / horrible enough to be included on this list. Coming up, we're going to look at a couple more guys, including one that would be selling very, very low on a player that meant a whole lot to the 2023 World Series champion Texas Rangers. Right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best place to get your tickets for all the live events you're looking to go to, whether it's sports, whether it's concert, whether it's comedy, whether it's theater, no matter what you're looking to get tickets to, Gametime is the best place to get those tickets. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks, and it makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what it's going to look like when you get there. They've also got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% the difference. Gametime also has your purchase covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, the number 4 player on this list of potential Rangers cost-saving trade candidates is Dane Dunning. And this is a guy who I think the Rangers, I don't know if they could necessarily trade him, but there is a chance. I don't know if it's likely, but I definitely think there's a chance the Rangers just straight up DFA Dane Dunning. I mean, the end to his season, just the entirety of Dane Dunning's season in 2024, it was rough. It was incredibly rough for Dunning, who was the Rangers pitcher of the year in 2023. He stepped up in a huge way that season when Jacob deGrom went down. Heck, even a couple of games where he left early, Dunning came in and was masterful. The first couple of months of that season, Dane Dunning was just straight up unhittable. They gave the Rangers a lot of bulk, 172 and 2/3 innings in 2023, where there was not a whole lot of bulk to be had by pretty much anybody in that Rangers rotation. He was healthy. He stepped up every single time the Rangers needed him. Dunning stepped up in a huge, huge way, including in the playoffs, including in that game 1 of the ALDS. He was really, really solid in that outing there, piggybacking off of Andrew Heaney in a game the Rangers won, set the tone, kept the Rangers' perfect road streak alive in a game where I was very sure that the Rangers were going to lose. Having Andrew Heaney and Dane Dunning starting game 1 of a playoff series, after coming off of that, 2-game sweep of the Rays, you thought, oh, okay, all right, let's see how this goes. And it went really, really well. But in 2024, it went incredibly poorly for Dane Dunning. Not only did he have problems with the walks, he was still, I felt like, focusing a little bit too much on strikeouts. He did have a decent Ks per nine, 8.6 Ks per nine for a guy who throws 89. That's solid. But when you're walking 3.8 guys per 9 innings and allowing 1.7 home runs per 9, I mean, if you're walking a lot of guys and giving up a lot of hard contact / home runs, it is really, really difficult to be consistent or even average as a starter. Right, this was just an incredibly rough year for Dunning, who got optioned to the minor leagues at the end of the season. That shocked me. That absolutely floored me. The Rangers were out of contention. There was no real reason to option Dane Dunning to the minors unless the Rangers thought, we just can't keep throwing this guy back out there. I mean, he was just getting absolutely battered all year long, and he's projected to make a little over $5 million in arbitration this season, $5.1 million, projected to be the 10th highest paid player at this point, behind the likes of Leody Taveras, behind the likes of Jonah Heim, Nathaniel Lowe, Jon Gray, all these other guys on this list. And there's a chance the Rangers just eat that. But the Rangers might need Dane Dunning. They would need a better version of Dane Dunning than they got in 2024, especially if they're looking to contend. Dane Dunning right now, I would say, is the 6th starter. I don't see a situation, barring an injury, where Dane Dunning is in the opening day rotation. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the Rangers long man / innings eater / every few days, if you need somebody to come in and make a spot start, that's probably going to be Dunning. Or the Rangers just might straight up bring Jose Urena back to play that role again, because Urena did a really, really good job there. But, I mean, for most of Dane Dunning's career, this has kind of been about the guy he is. You throw him out there every 5th day, and he's okay. I mean, he had a 4.5 ERA his first season with Texas. He had a 4.5 ERA his second season in Texas. This year it was near 5.5, and He had a sub-4 ERA despite kind of falling off at the end of 2023. That was maybe just a career year, an outlier year for Dane Dunning. And he's done a lot of good things for this team. But if he's that bad, if you're still walking a whole bunch of guys, you're not getting that weak soft contact and being able to go deep-ish into games, and you're giving up a bunch of home runs, that is just a losing formula. And that's why I think that I don't know that they would get any value for Dunning in a trade. But still, I think there is an outside chance the Rangers would just maybe straight up DFA Dane Dunning, which would be kind of a wild turn after him being such an important part of that World Series team in 2023. And the last guy on this list, another guy who was also very important in 2023 and not very good in 2024, that is Adolis Garcia. Now, I am not advocating for really any of these players to be traded. I would hate for the Rangers just straight up give away a player after a down season, sell low just to eat a little bit of cash. Now, Adolis Garcia is going to make around $9 million, $9.25 million this year because of that 2-year deal to avoid arbitration that he worked through before this past season. $9.25 million is not bad for a guy who has the upside of an all-star, who has been an all-star twice, who at times will carry this lineup. But after last year, it's possible to say, okay, maybe this guy is just hitting that aging curve and he's going to hit that aging curve real hard. I don't think so. I think he's still making a lot of hard contact, still has the bat speed. It's just the decision making, and I think a lot of the pressure he put on himself when this offense was not going well. He said, well, I'm the big bat on this team. I carried this team for stretches last year, including that ALCS where he had one of the greatest single season postseason series that we have ever seen anyone have. And the fact that he did against the Astros, just chef's kiss. So delightful. Texas Rangers hero forever. World Series hero forever with that walk-off home run in Game 1. But the Rangers would be selling very, very low on Adolis Garcia if they traded him at this point. 0.3 WAR season. The defense fell off an absolute cliff. I wouldn't be surprised if he's more of a DH type next year than an everyday right fielder, even though he just won a Gold Glove in 2023. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen defensive fall off that quickly from a player, of going from Gold Glove winner and deserved Gold Glove winner, because there have been some not deserved Gold Glove winners that the next year are terrible defensively because they were also terrible defensively when they won a Gold Glove. But Adolis Garcia was not that. He had been a very good defensive outfielder for years, but this year just overall a huge bummer of a season for Adolis Garcia. He is projected to be the seventh highest paid player? Yes, seventh highest paid player. The only guys above him are Lowe, Gray, Malley, Semien, Singer, and DeGrom. And Adolis Garcia's got that upside to go back and be that all-star level player. I feel very confident that, having this offseason surgery to fix whatever was going on in his knee, I feel like that collision with Marcus Semien did a lot more to impact him for a longer stretch than I think either of them would admit publicly. But this was just an incredibly rough year for Adolis Garcia. If the Rangers are wanting to, if they can take advantage of somebody thinking, okay, we can get Adolis Garcia to bounce back, and we're just going to allocate that money elsewhere to maybe just getting a DH or whatever else. Again, it's the same question with all these other guys. If you get rid of them, where are you spending that money that is a wiser and better investment? I don't know. With any of these guys, the Rangers just do have a logjam in their outfield of 4 guys for 3 spots in Evan Carter. Also, you throw in Josh Smith in there, and it becomes even more of a smorgasbord of what the heck do you do? Trading a guy frees up a spot, but then you lack that depth if one of those guys goes down with an injury. If, Leody Taveras goes down with an injury, or Evan Carter isn't as healthy as we hope that he is with all of those back issues that he's had the last couple of years. Or, God forbid, something happened to Wyatt Langford. I mean, absolutely, God forbid anything happen to the young hope of the Rangers' future. But still, if the Rangers are looking to, save some cash, these are some ways that they could do it. Overall, I'm really hoping they don't. I'm really hoping that we do go back and look at this at the end of this offseason and the Rangers saying, no, we're not going to just cut costs. Because again, these guys, they're making maybe a little bit more than you might think that they're worth. But there's definitely reason for hope of these guys bouncing back and being worth every single penny. Because if you're going to go replace these guys, you got to either do it internally or you've got to do it through free agency. And there's not a whole lot of internal, hitting prospects that are right on the verge of coming up and replacing this kind of value in what they have in Leody or Adolis or Nathaniel Lowe. I mean, there's just not a lot there. And even for mediocre players, you usually just spend a little bit more than they're worth on the open market in free agency. That's just how free agency works. So these are candidates that I think are possible for the Rangers trade. The one that's most likely, I think, is a move with Dane Dunning, whatever that looks like. With Leody, maybe that's the second most likely, but I really want to hammer home why I think trading off Nathaniel Lowe is not the kind of fix all with the Rangers money problems that some fans seem to think that it is. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy Texas Rangers baseball.